over.
It can't be over. If it never began.
Hello and welcome back to the Bogdanov Show, back at long last. I hope you enjoy the video that I have for you today. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe and share to spread the black pill far and wide. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the black pills. So people really seem to enjoy my analysis of 500 Days of Summer, so today we have another black pill movie analysis, this time on Last American Virgin. Unlike 500 Days of Summer, I don't think it's necessary to go out of your way to watch this movie if you haven't already done so, as I think I have most of the good parts covered. So the plot of the movie can basically be summed up as follows. A normie, chasing after Stacy, becomes the ultimate simp and only scores her after Chad no longer wants her. From here on, I'll refer to the protagonist of the movie as Normie because he is a fucking NPC and has the personality of a ham sandwich with no condiments on it. Because he is a normie, it's not automatically over for him, but his cardinal mistake is going after Stacy. Protagonist lives at home with his parents, goes to school, and works part-time delivering pizzas. This autistic entrance is the beginning of the movie and the first time the normie sees Karen, aka Stacy. She is an 80s dream, approachable, looks innocent, and has a pair of tits so perfect that it will cure your atheism. There is no way you can attribute those to evolution. Darwin can kiss my ass crack. Now obviously I can't show them here, but I'm sure if you were to search up the title of the movie and her name, it isn't that hard to find. Go ahead, pause the video, and do so. Now that you've seen them, I think we can agree they're pretty close to being perfect. Yes, the nipple is just a tad bit pointy, but if you're splitting hairs about that, you might be a Homo erectus. You can't classify them as milkers, but they have the size of a much larger boob with the perkiness of a small one. The areola is an appropriate size, there's no Mia Khalifa pepperoni nipples here. Let me get back on track. This is supposed to be a legitimate analysis, not one of Wrestling Otaku's hentai reviews. It is at this point you see what the issue is. Yes, this Chad right here. I couldn't pick a more stereotypical 80s Chad if I wanted to. Dude looks like Patrick Swayze and Kiefer Sutherland had a genetically perfect specimen together. Now let's talk about the 80s. It wasn't automatically over for a normie in the 80s because there was no social media, no Instagram, no Tinder, no TikTok. Women weren't constantly barraged with images of Chad day in and Jet day out. Sure, there were Chads on television, but there was not the same level of saturation that occurs in 2021. There was a separation between fantasy and what was reality. Women could chase rock bands around trying to be groupies if they wanted to, but those rock bands are only going to choose Stacy's. In the period directly after the World War, you had the pre-boomers who had the baby boomers between 1945 and 1964. The tail end of the boomers were all coming of age in the 80s and rejected the monotony of the post-Cold War era. World War II was the height of most pre-boomers' excitement, so they were content to settle down into the American dream, the kids, the white picket fence, the dog. The boomers, however, did not have the benefit of the Great War to temper their excitement. So while they still envisioned an eventual assimilation into the American dream, the concept was in the future and they were living for now. So the 80s was the age of the normie. A normie could find a good job out of high school, find a wife, and it wasn't over. Fast forward to 2021, it's over for everyone but the top 5% of males. The Chad of yesterday is the incel of tomorrow. Henry Chadville would have to overclock just to score a single mom in her 30s, and the average normie has a chance of a monsoon in Africa. Another reason why it's not over for normies in the 80s is because back then women did not have runaway SMV. They weren't constantly being gassed up by simps on Instagram and OnlyFans. They were validated if they were attractive and left by the wayside if they weren't. In the scene before this, Chad tells Fat Normie to go holler at those, quote, alien creatures over there, the idea being that they were easy to pick up. This is a concept that does not exist in 2021. A woman that would be a 3 or a 4 in 2021 still has 500 dudes in her DMs sending her good morning texts and saying how lucky he is to live in her world. There is no cherry picking in 2021. This is not a meme. Even Chad is starting to dip down in the 3s and 4s because hypergamy knows no bounds. In the 80s, there was no concept of fat acceptance. If you were chunky as a woman, you just simply had low SMV. So here we have blonde Miss Piggy, Barbara from Stranger Things, and a lost Bogdanov sister. None of these women would have any problem getting at least a Chad light in 2021. In 2021, the effect of years and years of social media validation and online dating have accelerated the dating market to the point where all males are dipping down out of convenience, attempting to avert the apathy that occurs when they approach females that are at their looks level. So this 20-second scene is absolutely brutal. What you see here is the average dating experience in 2021. Chad walks right up like it's a fucking taco stand and asks the girl of his choice whether she wants to dance as if she's gonna say no. Then he proceeds to instantly grow on her like bacteria on a agar plate, and before you know it, she's laying hands on him like she's trying to faith heal. Meanwhile, Normie walks up to this tube with glasses so thick she can see into the future, and she proceeds to move away from him like her block just got gentrified. She looks like she has PCOS, Cushing's syndrome, hypothyroidism, adrenal insufficiency, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and every other glandular and endocrine problem that women formulate instead of admitting that they have the daily caloric intake of an AIDS patient running a marathon. I don't know what the fuck you would call it if you have cankles on your arms, but I'd have a better chance trying to identify a BTS member based on a baby picture than trying to identify where on her arm her wrist is located. The material necessary to make that shirt is enough to panic buy textile futures every time she goes shopping, but she is still apathetic about being approached by this Normie. Meanwhile, Chad is over here with the lost Bogdanov sister with his tongue so far down her throat that he's eating her ass from the front.
Would you like to dance?
I really don't care.
What do you care about?
Listen, don't start that small talk with me. It's not gonna help you anyway. You're not gonna get anything from me.
Listen, I
really don't care.
What you see here is the frustration of a Normie that knows that it's over. This is the point where he should have just gone for that big sleep sentence. What is brutal about this scene is that even this fat roastie has received some level of validation from men, otherwise she would not be behaving like this towards Normie. I wonder how Chad is faring with the girl that he's dancing with.
Please stop, Rick. Please stop. Please stop.
So Chad, who has been around this girl the same length of time that Normie's has, is in the process of tickling her tonsils with his taste buds. She is telling him to stop, but she's not actively stopping him. This is clearly virtue signaling of the highest order. The lost Bogdanov sister has to pretend that she is holding back a little bit because she doesn't want to be perceived as being easy. Of course, if she woke up after a night of debauchery and decided that she didn't want to add Chad to her consensual body count, she would be down at the police station explaining how she told Chad to stop but he didn't listen. Chad is W. King Ford with the confidence of an NBA player at a pickup game because he knows that he's not going to be turned down. If she was to turn him down, Chad would just move on to the next without a pause to even take a breath.
So,
What about the drugs?
what about the drugs? Better think of something quick. Why the hell did you have to promise them drugs? Because that's what they wanted. Yeah, well, you shouldn't have promised them anything. Look, if I didn't promise them something, they would have never come, right?
What Chad means to say is that without the mention of drugs, the girls would not have come hang out with Normie and Fat Normie. We both know that Chad could have invited the Bogdanov sister to go out on a walk and the only drug involved would be the dopamine she produces while he remixes her guts like a hit single.
Do you know who she is?
I don't know. She just moved here about a week ago.
Hey, can you find out where she lives?
So Normie feels the need to let air out of her tires so that he can manufacture a reason to talk to her. Normie is already behind the curve and should just throw in the damn towel. Do you think that Chad is working this hard to talk to somebody?
Karen, hold on a second. I wanted to ask what you were doing tonight.
I'm afraid I'm busy.
See, because I know about this really great happening party tonight.
Sorry. There's always next time.
Obviously, this was said just to placate Normie. Of course, there is not going to be a next time.
Thanks again, Gary.
Karen? Let me ask you something straight out.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you have a boyfriend?
No.
Well,
Thanks again, Gary.
What you see here is brutal. As soon as she has thanked Normie for giving her a ride to school, the transactional nature of their relationship is over. She is used to guys simping for her and offering her things, so she is not thinking about their encounter in the same way that Normie is. However, at this point, Normie has enlisted the help of a friend to track down where she lives, driven to her house, let the air out of her tires, and then camped like a roof sniper in Warzone waiting for her to come out of the house, and then he drove her to school. So Karen is in the process of trying to continue on her way, and Normie keeps interrupting her. The look on her face when she turns around is poorly veiled annoyance, but she switches to a placid half smile while she waits for Normie to ask his question. She is not legitimately legitimately interested in anything that Normie has to say, but she's also not completely rude. Now clearly, after Normie made small talk in the car and tried unsuccessfully to invite her to a party, she had to know something of this nature was happening, so she cuts him off before he can continue with his autistic line of questioning. Normie's problem is that he mistakes her amiable manner as legitimate interest. At this point, Karen has not done anything to make her think that she is interested in him, and yet he continues stumbling for it. It is over.
Hey, Gary, man, guess who's here? Oh, Karen. She's right over there, dancing with Rick.
This is what the average roastie feels like being in Chad's aura. As you can see, it takes her absolutely no time to warm up to him and all the personality that his jawline can impart. Now let's dial it back real quick. The high school that they go to is not that large, so based on the small size of it, how many parties could all possibly be going on at the same day? If this party that Normie is at has a vast majority of kids from the high school, then that means that the likelihood of multiple parties going on simultaneously is pretty low. So when Normie asked Karen out to the party and she said she was busy, this is highly suspect. She either A, did not have plans and was lying about being busy, B, had other plans but switched them up to go with Chad, or C, was already going to the party with Chad. Either way, it does not bode well for Normie. If she was already planning to go to the party with Chad, it would be reasonable for her to say, I'm already going with somebody else, or say that she would probably run into him there.
Oh, mine too.
Oh, I want you to meet my two very best friends. Gary, David, how you guys doing? Listen, I want you to meet the love of my life.
Now keep in mind that Karen did not know Chad beforehand. This is their first interaction. Notice how she is smiling constantly, eyes trained on Chad. Her body language is not conflicting with her face or her words, she is entranced. This is a genuine smile. Karen is so consumed with Chad that he is the only thing that she's looking at. When Chad says, I want you to meet the love of my life, she laughs as if this is the funniest thing that she has ever heard. Considering that they have just met, this is an absolutely ludicrous statement. They have not had any time to know each other beyond a cursory appraisal of each other's personalities. If this was a Normie referring to her as the love of his life, she would deem him too clingy and say that he is moving too fast. But when Chad says it, it doesn't reek of the insecurity and clinginess the way that it would if a Normie had said it.
Gary, this is... Hi, Karen.
Hi, Gary.
Oh, so you two have met before? Yeah. Yeah, I guess you can say that.
There is a brutal amount to unpack from just this 10 seconds. When Normie says hi Karen, his body language is communicating that he is aware of how incongruent Karen's behavior has been up to this point. He is behaving as if he expects Karen to respond with shame or be apologetic. Instead, Karen says hi Gary and doesn't even acknowledge the fact that they are at the same party. While Normie has been flogging his bishop thinking about Karen since the last time they met, Karen has given Normie about as much thought as Jeff Bezos would give a parking ticket. Now notice when Chad says, so you two have met before, he doesn't have any shadow of insecurity in his voice or manner. He's not pontificating on what the basis for the two having met before is. He doesn't care to what degree they may have been involved. He's not concerned that she's going to lose interest in him. Now imagine how much differently this scene would have played out if Karen had gone to the party with Normie and then ran into Chad and clearly known him. Normie would have been following up trying to ascertain how much interaction Chad and Karen had before, and it would be a thorn in his paw until he got placated.
Karen, hi. There you are. I've been looking for you all night.
Oh, hi, Rose. Rose, this is Rick.
Hi.
And this is Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, Rose.
Notice how Karen first introduces Rose to Chad and then to Normie as an afterthought like he's a fucking NPC. Now this right here is why I have no fucking sympathy for Normie. The whole movie, Normie has Rose trying to suck him so dry that his kidneys can take a union break, and he ignores her like a Wall Street banker walking through Skid Row. Keep in mind that prior to sniffing up Stacy's ass, Normie's last prospect was Wide Load from earlier, who has a defunct pituitary gland. Normie should know better than trying to compete against Chad for Stacy. If he wasn't so blue-pilled, he would understand that all of his infatuation with her is based on her attractiveness, and that they haven't had any interaction to base his attractiveness towards her on. Normie should have cut his losses by cutting his wrist, or in absence of that, banged female Doc Brown until she goes back to the future. Instead, he is so far up Stacy's ass that his head and Chad's sperm are about to take 10 paces and duel. Once again, Normie finds himself in a similar situation to Tom from 500 Days of Summer. It's not over for a Normie in the 80s if he approaches based on his looks level, but unfortunately for him, he's trying to shoot so far up from his SMV that the bullet he fired would hit him directly in the top of the head.
What's the matter with you? Are you drunk?
Not yet. I'm just getting started.
Stacy has the awareness of a bat in a soundproof room. When she asks what's wrong, she is either completely autistic or doesn't give a shit about Normie. Obviously, Normie wants to be a personal bidet and eat pudding out of her ass crack, and the fact that she turned him down like hotel sheets has him heated.
You and Rick are pretty good friends, aren't you?
You sure like him, don't you?
Why do you ask?
Why do you ask? Because you have had a covalent bond with this Chad the whole fucking night long, and Normie has been trying to lick your cooter. This is such an autistic question.
Hey guys, look who's here.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
What happened to you last night? I waited till 11 o'clock for you.
What happened to me? What happened to you? I called you at least 10 times.
My phone didn't ring once.
You're kidding. Well, better get it checked then. I was worried about you, Karen.
Chad is gaslighting so much that you could see him from space. So in the couple of scenes between the party and now, Chad had asked Normie for the keys to his grandmother's house because him and Karen had a date. Normie made up some weak excuse to get out of it, and then when Chad called him out on it, he said he knows of a hooker that would be willing to smash the three of them for $30 a piece. Now I don't know about you, but that seems a little excessive price-wise. I remember in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel Foley was raging about the $7 price for a Coke and says he can get blown for $7. Anyway, expensive hooker notwithstanding, Chad goes with some Normie and fat Normie to bang the hooker instead of going on a date with Karen, and then proceeds to blow smoke up her ass about trying to call her and it didn't work. Classic.
Have you seen Karen around here?
Yeah, she should be around here somewhere.
Yeah, because I saw her moped outside.
I saw her go with Rick somewhere.
Yeah, but they should be right back.
Where did they go?
They probably just went for a walk.
Bullshit, David. He took her to the football field to bust her cherry, and you know it.
Why the fuck would Normie still be trying to talk to Karen knowing damn well Chad has her locked down like a refugee at the Hotel Rwanda?
Hey Gary, hold up.
Where have you been? I was out on the football field. I fucked Karen. You're full of shit. You're lying. What do you want me to do? Show you an instant replay?
The only reason why Chad doesn't show Normie an instant replay is because he is constrained by the technology of the time. If Chad had been in 2021, he would have whipped his iPhone out and turned it sideways to show Normie the replay in 4K, or hit him with a link to the Dropbox detailing the yam mashing. What is so brutal about this is Chad is treating the first time him and Karen hit the horizontal yeet like he got plus 2500 XP from bedding her. Now Normie is accusing Chad of lying about smashing Karen purely because in his blue-pilled state, he wants to believe she is too wholesome to get her back blown out on the cold steel of the bleachers. Normie needs to take the black pill and understand that the next time Karen is getting railed on the football field, it won't be one Chad. She's finna draft the whole team like her depth chart is empty. No sooner does Chad dunk up in Karen's basket before he decides to run like roaches when you turn the light on. Did Karen think that Chad was somehow going to give a shit about her after he already clapped? This is the inherent problem with dating in 2021. Women all want to chase Chad around like a hot pursuit and then are surprised when Chad moves on after he dipped his oil stick. Karen didn't just throw her cherry at Chad expecting him to disengage and move on to the next target. She probably envisioned them getting married and getting the house, the picket fence, the dog, and the kids. Well, unfortunately for her, her vice grip axe wound is not enough to keep Chad hooked when he has more options than a Q4 earnings call. If women were content to get their guts remixed and then move on to the next Chad, they would not be jaded enough to pull up Reddit and go to FDS. Karen is asinine if she thinks that she is going to have Chad more sentimental than a Hallmark Christmas movie.
What's wrong? you two arguing in there?
It's over between us, so it doesn't matter.
So why are you crying then?
I'm pregnant.
This is the point at which Normie's metamorphosis into Giga Simp is finally complete. This entire time, Karen has been ignoring Normie like the homeless guy outside of 7-Eleven. He sees that she and Chad had a fight, and I'm sure his first thought was, if she was with me, I would never hurt her or break her heart. So he pulls up with verbal diarrhea, spouting platitudes, trying to be a snake in the grass. Honestly, Normie's fixation on Karen is quite nauseating. He goes from being an overzealous loser to straight up soy boy for not leaving Karen on red the second that she says she is pregnant. Even if Karen was suddenly amenable to a friendship or relationship with Normie, he should be acutely aware of the fact that this is only because her S&V has taken a GME stock tumble the second that an egg is fertilized and attached itself to the uterine wall. But of course, Normie would rationalize it away the same way Homo erecti still do in 2021. It's okay that she is single with 4 kids, they say to themselves between swigs of testosterone-depleting soy beverages. She has learned her lesson now and knows what she wants. This is the amount of cognitive dissonance that could make Anne Frank throw on an SS badge and start going door to door checking addicts.
I'm gonna take care of this, understand? I'm gonna help you. Okay?
Okay.
What's your problem? She's pregnant. You know it. Good news travels fast, huh?
What exactly was the point of Normie rolling up on Chad like this? Does he think Chad is going to buy a pair of New Balances and start working on his barbecue skills? Does he think that Chad is going to start casing the area for the cheapest gas and the best deals on lawn equipment?
I want you to know I really appreciate everything you've done for me. I can't think of anyone who would have done what you've done for me.
I love you.
So to recap the last few minutes, Normie and Karen go to an abortion clinic where they find out that an abortion costs $250. Normie picks up several shifts at the pizza place until he has the money, then he takes care of Karen after the abortion while everyone else is on a ski trip. Karen finally comes around and after being ravaged by Chad, seems to show some level of appreciation for Normie. Normie admits that he's in love with her and always has been. They share a plaintive kiss. Normie revels in the fact that his persistence is paid off and Karen is finally his.
How much is it?
Like it?
It's beautiful.
$80.
I'll take it.
Just kidding.